It was one of those quiet nights I craved after a long week. My apartment was dimly lit, candles glowing softly on the coffee table while a glass of wine sat half full in my hand. A book lay open in my lap, though truthfully, I hadn't been reading much. I was enjoying the rare silence, the stillness that came after a hectic day. The city outside hummed faintly, but in here, it felt like my own little cocoon. I had slipped into an oversized t-shirt and shorts, no makeup, my hair loosely tied back. The kind of comfort you allow yourself only when no one's supposed to see you. That's when the knock came. It startled me, sharp, firm, urgent. I froze for a moment, wondering if I had imagined it. Who could possibly be at my door this late? My phone hadn't rung, no delivery was scheduled, and my friends knew better than to just show up. The knock came again, this time followed by a voice. "Hey, sorry to bother you this late, it's me, Ryan." My neighbor. Immediately, my pulse quickened. Ryan lived just across the hall. We'd exchanged pleasantries plenty of times, brief conversations in the elevator or when checking mail. He was hard to ignore. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair always a little tousled, and eyes that seemed to look right through you when he smiled. He was younger than me, at least 5, maybe even 7 years younger, and carried that easy confidence men his age often did. I set my book aside, brushing at my hair instinctively even though I knew it was a hopeless mess. "Just a second," I called, trying not to sound flustered. When I opened the door, he stood there in a faded gray hoodie and sweatpants, looking equal parts casual and ridiculously good-looking. His lips curved into that half-smile I had noticed too many times before. "Sorry," he said quickly, running a hand through his hair. "I wouldn't bug you this late if it wasn't kind of important." My curiosity piqued. "It's fine, what's going on?" He shifted, holding up his phone sheepishly. "My charger died. I was wondering if you had a spare I could borrow? Mine completely gave out, and I need my phone charged for work in the morning." I laughed softly, shaking my head. "That's your emergency?" He chuckled too, the sound warm, boyish, disarming. "Yeah, I know, pathetic, right?" I hesitated only a second before stepping aside. "Come in. I'll find one." He brushed past me into the apartment, and for the first time, I realized just how good he smelled, a mix of clean soap and something faintly masculine musky. It was subtle but hit me in a way that made my chest tighten. I turned quickly, walking toward the drawer where I kept extra cords, trying to shake off the awareness of him standing in my living room. "I'm sure I've got a spare somewhere," I muttered, rummaging. "You've got a nice place," he said behind me, his voice casual, but I could feel his eyes roaming. "Thanks," I replied, tugging a cord free. "Here. This should work." When I turned to hand it to him, he stepped closer than I expected, and for a fraction of a second, our fingers brushed as he took it. The contact was brief, accidental, but enough to send a small spark rushing through me. His eyes met mine, and something lingered there. A flicker. Heat. I looked away quickly, clearing my throat. "So, crisis averted," I joked, trying to shake off the tension. "Yeah," he said softly. Then, with a grin, "Unless you mind me hanging out while it charges?" I'd hate to just stand in my apartment staring at a dead phone. The laugh that escaped me was nervous, but I gestured toward the couch. "Sure. Why not?" He settled in comfortably, stretching out a little too easily, like he belonged there. I sat across from him, my wine glass still on the table. He noticed, his lips quirking. "Wine, huh? You celebrating something?" "Just celebrating making it through the week," I replied, taking another sip. "Want a glass?" His smile widened. "Only if you're offering." As I poured, I caught myself wondering, was I really letting my neighbor stay this late, drink wine with me, sit in my living room when I was dressed like this? Every instinct told me it was harmless. But another part of me, the part that had felt that spark when our fingers touched, wasn't so sure. I handed him the glass of wine, watching the way his fingers wrapped around the stem. For a moment, I became too aware of how close he was sitting, not across the room anymore, but angled toward me, one arm casually draped along the back of the couch. "To surviving the week," he said, raising his glass. I clinked mine gently against his. "To surviving." The first sip loosened something between us, as if that small toast had drawn a line and dared us both to cross it. "So," I asked, trying to keep my voice light, "do you make a habit of knocking on your neighbor's door at midnight for favors?" He chuckled, eyes glinting. "Only when the neighbor happens to be you." The words hit me harder than I expected. I laughed, but my cheeks warmed, and I looked away, pretending to study the flicker of candlelight on the wall. "Your trouble," I muttered. "Me," he said, feigning innocence. "I was the one in distress tonight. You're the rescuer." I smirked, shaking my head. That's one way to spin it. The conversation flowed easily after that. Stories about his work, complaints about neighbors on the other floors, jokes about the creaky elevator that always seemed on the verge of breaking down. But under the laughter, there was an undercurrent, a pull I couldn't ignore. Every time he leaned in, his shoulder brushed mine. Every time he laughed, I felt it reverberate through me in ways it shouldn't. His knee grazed mine once, and neither of us moved away. "Can I tell you something?" he said suddenly, his voice lower, quieter. I hesitated. "What?" "You don't look like someone who spends Friday nights alone." The remark caught me off guard. "And what exactly does that mean?" I asked, raising a brow. He shrugged, swirling his wine, but his eyes stayed locked on mine. I don't know. Gorgeous. Interesting. The kind of woman I'd think would be out with someone who knows how lucky they are to be with you." For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Compliments from him weren't new. I'd caught little ones before in passing, but hearing it like this, so direct, so earnest, was something else entirely. "You're too young to talk like that," I teased, though my voice wasn't as steady as I wanted. His lips curved into a slow smile. Too young, or just young enough to mean it? The air thickened between us, charged, dangerous. I tried to laugh it off, setting my glass down. "You really shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" His gaze didn't waver. "Because," I started, but the words tangled in my throat. "Because it's wrong. Because you're my neighbor. Because once that line is crossed, there's no going back." But none of those excuses made it past my lips. Instead, silence stretched between us, filled only by the faint hum of the city outside. He leaned just a little closer, his shoulder brushing mine again, deliberate this time. My pulse quickened. I could feel his breath, warm and faint against my cheek. And though every sensible thought screamed that I should pull away, close the door on this moment before it became something else, I didn't move. Not an inch. His nearness made it impossible to think. My heart hammered as I told myself to move away, to laugh it off, to do anything but what I wanted in that moment. But when his hand brushed mine again, this time lingering, deliberate, the resistance melted. I turned to him, and before I could second-guess it, his lips were on mine. The kiss was slow at first, testing, almost cautious, but charged with everything we'd been holding back. The taste of wine lingered between us, sweet and intoxicating. My breath caught as his hand slid to my jaw, tilting my face toward him with a gentleness that made my body ache for more. I should have stopped it. I knew I should. But the moment his tongue teased against mine, every rational thought slipped away. The kiss deepened, hungry now, and I felt myself responding with the same urgency. My fingers gripped the front of his hoodie, pulling him closer, as though proximity could erase the guilt already whispering at the back of my mind. He shifted, pressing me back into the couch cushions, his body warm and solid against mine. His hand slid down my side, fingertips skimming the hem of my shirt, and I shivered at the contact. "Are you sure?" he whispered against my lips, his voice ragged with restraint. I nodded before I could stop myself. "Yes." That one word shattered the last of his hesitation. In an instant, his mouth was everywhere, trailing heat down my neck, along my collarbone, lower still as his hands explored with a hunger that matched my own. My breath grew shallow, desperate, every nerve alive as his touch became bolder, more insistent. Clothes disappeared between kisses and fumbling hands until there was nothing left but bare skin against bare skin. His body pressed into mine, firm and unyielding, and the sensation made me gasp, arching beneath him. The world outside no longer existed. There was only the heat of his mouth, the strength of his hands, the rhythm that built between us as passion overtook hesitation. Each movement, each sound pulled me further into a place I couldn't turn back from, and didn't want to. When he finally entered me, the breath rushed from my lungs in a mix of relief and need. The connection was electric, overwhelming, as though all the teasing tension of the night had erupted in a single, uncontrollable flame. We moved together in urgent waves, soft gasps and whispered names filling the silence of my apartment. His grip tightened on my hips, my nails dug into his shoulders, and the pace grew wilder, desperate. My body trembled as pleasure mounted, sharp and consuming, until it crashed over me in a rush that left me gasping, clinging to him as though I'd never let go. He followed with a groan, collapsing against me, both of us breathless, slick with heat and satisfaction. For a long moment, we stayed like that, tangled, silent, hearts racing in sync. When I finally opened my eyes, the candles had burned low, their flames flickering weakly, as though they too had surrendered to the night. Ryan brushed a damp strand of hair from my cheek, his lips pressing a soft kiss to my temple. The sweetness of it nearly undid me more than the passion had. But reality crept back in, slow and unwelcome. This was my neighbor. Younger. Off limits. A line I had promised myself I would never cross. And yet, here we were, bodies entwined, breath still mingling, the taste of him still on my lips. He started, hesitating. I silenced him with a kiss, softer this time, lingering. Not yet, I whispered. He stayed a while longer, holding me, and I let myself drown in the warmth of it. But when he finally left, charger in hand, the apartment felt different. The silence wasn't comforting anymore. It was heavy, full of secrets. I curled up on the couch, still tasting him, still feeling the ghost of his touch on my skin. I knew it was reckless, that I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. But as my body hummed with the memory of him, I also knew one thing for certain. I couldn't and wouldn't forget tonight. Not ever.